Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Thursday. Yesterday, when I got home, there was a million crows in my yard and on my roof. I'm looking around, and they were only at my house. So I started panicking. I looked it up, and it said there's probably a food source nearby, which I did not see. But spiritually, it says that it means it is a call to listen to your intuition and inner wisdom, signaling a period of change, regeneration, or transformation. Has that happened to you before? Let me know, because it scared me. Also, did you know that crows can remember human faces, especially ones that they have had bad experiences with? I didn't know that, so we learned something new yesterday. Okay, so former FBI Director James Comey, yes, the man at the center of some of the most controversial years in American politics, is reportedly about to be indicted in Virginia. Let's break down what's really happening, what the charges might be, and what this means for the justice system, for politics, and for accountability. Welcome to Nellie Miranda. As always, please make sure you like and subscribe to support the channel and ring the bell so you don't miss anything. So here's what we know. A federal grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia is preparing an indictment against Comey. The alleged charge is that he lied to Congress during his September 2020 testimony, specifically about whether he authorized leaks. That is a big deal. Lying under oath isn't some technical slip-up, it's a felony. He knew that, I knew that, and your toddler did too. The kicker here is timing. The statute of limitations for those alleged lies runs out on October 1st. That's literally days away. So if this indictment is going to happen, it has to happen right now, like last week. Take a look at this clip from MSNBC.
Sources familiar tell MSNBC former FBI Director James Comey is expected to be indicted in the coming days. The full extent of the charges being prepared against Comey is unclear. Carol, help us understand the reporting.
So, Katie, we have some sources who say that for several weeks now, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia, and actually in offices that are potentially much further south than Alexandria, have been eyeing ways to indict Comey, and they are getting very much closer. The statute of limits, they are arguing that Comey, there is evidence to suggest Comey lied to Congress in his testimony on the Hill in September of 2020. And for viewers out in the audience who may not be legally as nerdy as me and Ken, I'll just say that there's a statute of limitations to charge people with the crime of lying to Congress or perjury, and that's 5 years. The 5-year statute runs this month.
But here's where the story gets even more tangled. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Virginia, the one overseeing this, is suddenly under new leadership. Remember? Let me jog your memory in case you forgot. Eric Siebert was fired by Trump for refusing to prosecute New York Attorney General Letitia James. He claims that he sees no evidence of fraud, and perhaps he doesn't, but that's besides the point. The point is he has been replaced, and Lindsay Halligan was just installed as interim U.S. attorney. She's a Trump ally, but she has no prior prosecutorial experience. So you have a brand new prosecutor, handpicked by Trump's Justice Department, about to drop an indictment on one of Trump's most bitter enemies. I don't know, you guys. It's going to raise some questions about politics being baked into this process. Watch.
What exactly is he accused of lying about, Ken?
Well, there was an exchange. There was a seminal hearing back in September of 2020 where congressional Republicans grilled him in the Senate about the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, the FBI Trump-Russia investigation. And remember, there were some issues around FBI mistakes, and the Republicans were accusing him of all sorts of misdeeds and of relying on that dossier. But in one exchange with Senator Ted Cruz, he was asked about a previous question that had been put to him back in 2017 by Senator Grassley about whether he had ever authorized the leak of information about the Trump administration or the Clinton administration and Hillary Clinton. And he said that he had not. He repeated his answer back in 2017. the Republicans were suggesting at the time, and we believe at least one theory of this is now, that was a lie. Of course, Comey insists it wasn't a lie. That Comey in fact had authorized somehow a leak of information. And what Ted Cruz cited during the hearing was a leak by then Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe to the Wall Street Journal about an FBI investigation into the Clinton Foundation. Now, what's important to know about that is there was a whole Inspector General report about Andrew McCabe's behavior and his leaks, and he was criticized in that report. But that report found that he was authorized on his own as a deputy director to talk to the media, and that he did so without explicit authorization from Comey. So on its face, that doesn't seem to support the idea that Comey lied. Of course, we don't know everything that the grand jury is contemplating. And in fact, I should say, Katie, this is a fluid situation. This could change. We are being told this by 3 sources that an indictment of Comey is expected in the coming days. They're also saying that this same office is expected to charge Tish James, the New York Attorney General, with mortgage fraud. And of course, Donald Trump, we all saw it posted on Truth Social in recent days, exhorting his Attorney General to charge both of those people as soon as possible. But again, this is, grand juries are secret. This is a fluid situation. It's also important to know, though, that the U.S. attorney, the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in this office, Eric Siebert, was essentially forced out last week, in part because he was refusing to bring these cases. We're told that he was opposed to prosecuting both James and Comey on these grounds, and he's out now. And the new U.S. attorney is a former Donald Trump defense lawyer who's never prosecuted a case.
Now, let's slow down for a minute. What does it actually take to charge someone like Comey with lying to Congress? It is not enough to say he contradicted himself. Prosecutors have to prove that he knowingly and willfully lied about something material. In other words, it cannot just be a mistake. It has to be a deliberate deception. That is not an easy case to make, especially against someone as high profile as a former FBI director. On top of that, because we're brushing right up against the statute of limitations, the timing looks a little bit suspicious. If prosecutors had the goods, why wait 5 years to act? If this was such a slam dunk, shouldn't the indictments have come earlier? I'm just asking questions. The left is going to say that the justice system is being weaponized and that the president is openly targeting his political opponents. Take a listen to this segment from CNN.
Jeffrey, is it possible to overstate the significance of the president of the United States telling Pam Bondi to go after perceived enemies?
It's never happened before in American history. Nothing like that. When you look at Richard Nixon's enemies list, which is maybe the closest parallel, he didn't make it public. It came out much later in investigations because he knew how wrong it was. Nixon knew that it was wrong to target enemies and to use the power of the government to attack people simply because they're your enemies. This is that kind of misconduct in public from the president. As a former prosecutor, who has a lot of respect for how the Justice Department works, the idea that a president is directing the indictment and firing people, he fired the U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia because he wouldn't go after Tish James. This is a real perversion of how the Justice Department is supposed to work.
The question then gets asked, do you see this as a perversion of how the Justice Department is supposed to work? And Brad Todd is the only one who offered a sensible answer, citing what the president actually said, prompting Anderson to roll the clip. Watch.
Brad, do you see this as a perversion of how the Justice Department is supposed to work?
Well, Anderson, we're not giving the rest of the context here. Later on, and when he was interviewed, the next interview after this, President Trump said, maybe they're not guilty of anything. And if they're not guilty of anything, we need to be able to say that and move on.
Well, actually, let me play what he said on Saturday.
We have to act fast, one way or the other. One way or the other. They're guilty, they're not guilty, we have to act fast. If they're not guilty, that's fine. If they are guilty or if they should be charged, they should be charged. And we have to do it now.
So is that what he said, though, to the Attorney General?
Well, that's what presumably she watches the news and heard his soundbite there. And, she in the end doesn't bring charges. She would have to present evidence to a grand jury. The grand jury, a jury of citizens, would have to bring charges against someone. So that's how this system works. It's how it has worked. And that's how this would follow through if the Justice Department ever decided there was anything of merit against one of those individuals.
To understand why this is such a bombshell, you have to remember who James Comey is and what he represents. This is the man who publicly cleared Hillary Clinton in 2016, only to reopen the case days before the election. This is the same man who leaked his own memos about meetings with President Trump, memos that were later used to push for a special counsel. This is the man Trump fired in 2017, sparking endless debates about obstruction and Russian interference. Here's Comey 6 years ago talking about being questioned in regards to Hillary Clinton's emails.
Another day of Hillary Clinton's emails and the Steele dossier. This while the President of the United States is lying about the FBI, attacking the FBI, and attacking the rule of law in this country. How does that make any sense at all? Republicans used to understand that the actions of a president matter, the words of a president matter, the rule of law matters, and the truth matters. Where are those Republicans today? At some point, someone has to stand up and in the face of fear of Fox News, fear of their base, fear of mean tweets, stand up for the values of this country and not slink away into retirement, but stand up and speak the truth. I find it frustrating to be here answering questions about things that are far less important than the values that this country is built upon.
Comey has always insisted that he acted honorably, but plenty of Americans see him as the embodiment of the deep state, a bureaucrat who bent the rules to protect his allies and target his enemies. If he is actually indicted, it would be the first time a former FBI director faces criminal charges tied to his time in office, and that would be historic. Now, let's talk politics because you cannot separate law and politics here. The question is whether this is true accountability or just another round of political theater. On one hand, if the evidence is strong, if Comey knowingly lied under oath, then yes, he should face justice. Nobody, not even the FBI director, should be above the law. On the other hand, the optics here are rough. Trump's Justice Department just installed a loyalist in Virginia, and days later, we hear that Comey is about to be indicted. The left is already framing this as revenge, as Trump's DOJ settling scores. And who knows, possibly. They're not entirely wrong to point out the timing, because in politics, optics matter just as much as facts. If this is seen as a partisan hit job, it risks undermining whatever legitimacy the case might have. If it's done poorly, it looks like Banana Republic justice, where every new administration prosecutes its opponents. But if it's done properly with strong evidence, transparent process, and a clear case, it could be the rare moment where the system actually holds one of its own accountable. Again, to recap, take a look at this clip from Fox News.
Charging former FBI Director James Comey with lying to Congress over testimony before a Senate panel in September of 2020. Correspondent David Spott has the breaking story from Washington. Good evening, David.
Brett, good evening. We're told a grand jury in Virginia is looking at evidence relating to allegations that former FBI Director James Comey may have lied to Congress on September 30th, 2020. That date is very specific because the statute of limitations for lying before Congress is typically 5 years. Next Tuesday marks exactly 5 years since his remote testimony. He was in Virginia at the time. It was during the throes of COVID. It's unclear if a grand jury will vote to indict Comey. The grand jury has the option to say yes or no to an indictment. As to be clear, as we speak, Brett, he's not been indicted and he's not facing charges at this moment. This is all up to a grand jury. This latest development comes just days after President Trump publicly pressured Attorney General Pam Bondi to move forward with charges against Comey, Senator Adam Schiff, and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Schiff and James were mentioned by Trump for unrelated mortgage fraud allegations. They also have not been charged at this moment. Trump wrote, Pam, I've reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially, quote, same old story as last time, all talk, no action. Nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Shifty Schiff, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done, end quote. Trump then went on to suggest that Bondi appoint Lindsay Halligan, his former personal attorney, to become the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. On Friday, Eric Siebert resigned from that post under pressure from the administration. And on Monday, just a few days later, Lindsay Halligan was sworn in. The Justice Department is declining comment on anything related to this overall probe.
Let's wait for when the actual indictment comes down. Will it be narrowly focused on that 2020 testimony, or will prosecutors try to broaden it? Let's see how Comey responds. His legal team will almost certainly try to frame this as political retaliation and pay attention to how the media covers it. The left will likely play the Trump revenge card, while conservative media will call it overdue accountability. And we have to watch the courts. Which judges get assigned to the case, what pretrial motions are filed, and how much of this is played out in the public versus behind closed doors, et cetera, et cetera. These are the details that will shape not just the outcome for Comey, but the credibility of the justice system. So here's my question to you. Do you think this is real justice or just another act in the never-ending political revenge theater? Let me know in the comments, and if honest commentary brings you value, please make sure you like and subscribe to support the channel and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.